Hey folks, this is Rhykker with another video from my Gamescom series. This one all about Last Epoch. As I've said before, I actually got invited by the Last Epoch team to come to Gamescom to hang out at their booth and tell people about the game. Since I've always seen Last Epoch as a really promising upcoming aRPG that has a number of really innovative ideas that I'm frankly surprised no other dev has stolen yet. This game has my favorite active skill system. Literally every skill in the game has its own skill tree, allowing you to invest points into customizing your skills however you want. It also has a really interesting take on trade. You can choose to either join a trade guild or a non-trade guild, and if you opt for not having the ability to trade, then you instead get better drops. Last Epoch has been in early access for a few years now, and its full release is coming by the end of this year. But on September 7th, the new Rune Master Mastery becomes available for everyone. It's a really cool subclass of the Mage that is incredibly ambitious in design. Players have been waiting for the Rune Master for a long time, and now it's clear why. The Rune Master's unique mechanic is his runes. When he casts a fire spell, he gets a fire rune above his head. A cold spell, a cold rune. Lightning spell, lightning rune. You can have a max of 3 runes above your head at any given time. When you cast another spell, your oldest rune disappears. But what do these runes do? Well, once you activate your runic invocation skill, that consumes the rune sequence above your head to cast one of 40 unique spells. Yes, every single combination of runes above your head, like Fire, Fire, Ice, or Ice, Fire, Fire, will cast a unique spell. Some are more single target, some are more area, some are more defensive. It's just an insane amount of work, all gone into what really is one skill. This one skill has 40 skills in it. And it's such a cool combo system. I figure some players are going to memorize all 40 combinations, a very small number. Most players will probably memorize, maybe 2 or 3 that they really like. And some players are just going to mash buttons and make cool stuff happen on screen, and hey, that's okay too. Because having seen tons of people play the Rune Master at Gamescom, what I can say is this class is fun. aRPG veterans were really digging into all the nitty-gritty of learning all the different invocations, and players new to the genre were just kind of like, when you were a kid mashing buttons in Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat. The team behind Last Epoch, 11th Hour Games, is really cool, bunch of great people, and I sat down with Judd Cobler, the boss of 11th Hour Games, and all-around terrific guy, to talk more about Last Epoch. Here's our interview.
So my name's Judd. I'm the CEO and founder of 11th Hour Games and the game director for Last Epoch. Sitting here with Rhykker, excited to chat.
Very excited. How do you feel after these few days?
Yeah, it's been fantastic. It's been really great to be able to meet and see and thank the fans that have helped get us to this point. And being a remote studio, we've also been able to meet with a number of individuals that we work with that we've never got to see in person. So, for example, we have an art producer that I've been working with for 6 years now, Derek, and I met him 5 days ago here at Gamescom in Germany. So it's been a blast, And
that's because you guys are situated all around the world, right?
We are a completely remote team. We started off Reddit, and we were just sourcing people that were passionate about aRPGs. Don't care where they are, and still a remote team and plan to stay that way.
So right now, what are you most excited about?
Oh, so much. So right now, it's really great to be able to share the game with so many people. We've been very reserved about marketing the game and attending events and things like that because we want to make sure that the game is in a really great spot before we go out and start to market the game. So being able to share it right now while the game is in a good spot and people are really enjoying it has been fantastic. I guess also on the games side of thing, I'm really excited to get back home to the States because when I get back, I get to work with the game design team and the animation team on the Falconer class, which I'm personally very excited about.
I know a lot of fans are very excited about that. Absolutely. When are we going to get to try that?
So Falconer will be coming with 1.0, and so the next patch, though, 0.9.2, September 7th, is going to be introducing the Rune Master class.
Which you got to preview at Gamescom. Lots of people got their hands on that.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a bit about the Rune Master?
Yeah. So the Rune Master class is really awesome. He's a class where we have this unique mechanic where he's able to generate runes based on the spells that he casts. And depending on the types of runes that you're generating and the sequence in which you're holding them, you're able to invoke any of 40 different abilities, making it extremely fun to experiment with and find different builds that people want to play with. So yeah, we're very, very excited about the Rune Master class.
Yeah, so you got the 5 base classes. Rune Master is a mastery of the Mage.
That's correct. 3
masteries per class.
Mm-hmm.
And going forward, what's the plan post-launch with that?
Yeah, so the team loves creating classes and skills. That is something that we just enjoy as a studio. And so post the 15 masteries that we have with 1.0, there's certainly more to look forward to if people enjoy different classes. Not ready to talk about any of those just yet, but there is certainly lots of great stuff with the masteries that we have in the game and coming with 1.0 and 0.9.2.
Amongst those 15 current masteries, each of them seems to fill some unique niche. How do you manage to keep adding more and make them all remain distinct?
Yeah, that's a great question. So going into the design process of that a little bit, you of course start with defining a strong class fantasy for a class when you're working with the team there. You look at maybe what doesn't exist in the game or what might be lacking, or if there's an element that might not be being utilized enough in the game. But another tactic we use is making sure that we define what a class is not going to have. And so, for example, the Mage class does not have minions and will not have minions. And that keeps it from being so that the classes end up being homogenized in a way that we don't want to end up having.
That's very interesting. So for every class, you kind of have a is not list on it?
We do. And it's not always, minions or something like that, but there will usually be things that we say this class isn't going to have this type of element associated with it, or won't have this mechanic, or won't, something like that. That does help us keep them differentiated.
Gotcha. And I guess along the lines, we got a lot of different skills. There's 120 roughly skills in the game?
Yeah, there's 119 skills in the game currently with skill trees, which is awesome. Tons to play with there. We are going to be continuing to implement more skills into the future, of course, like we had talked about. We'll also be revisiting old skill trees in the game as we continue to produce new tech. And we and the community have new awesome ideas that we're excited about putting into those. So we'll be continuing to add skills and then go back and iterate on them as we have new and cool ideas.
And when you say adding new skills, do you mean just for new masteries, new classes, or also for existing ones?
Yeah, so we actually do have plans to add more skills to a number of base classes and masteries into the game, but of course also the new masteries, yes.
And just to make sure this isn't lost on anyone, every single skill in this game has its own unique skill tree, right?
Yes, absolutely. I'll tell you a little story about that. When we were back in 2017, when this was a completely after-hours passion project, and we were 8 people that formed together on Reddit, we were working with the community and ourselves, and we were saying, what would the most awesome skill system look like? And we had this idea, what if every single skill in the game had its own transformative skill tree? And we geeked out about it, but we had the scope concern. We were I just don't know if we would be able to do that. And we slept on it, and we woke up and we're we just have to. We're already kind of throwing caution to the wind with this project in general. We want to make the game that we want to play as players, and so we did decide to do that. Best decision we've ever made. People love the skill system in Last Epoch, and it's a ton of fun to develop.
How, if you can quantify in some way, how long it takes to develop one skill, given you have the entire skill tree? It feels like an enormity of work.
Yeah. It's a good question. It varies quite a lot. I think, it depends on the skills. So, for example, Runic Invocation for the Rune Master. Yeah. So that one, we decided to just go over and above with this idea that we had. And so that took months to develop in terms of the entire pipeline, visual effects and balance and everything like that. But there are certainly some skills that we can jam on and potentially even create in just a few days, and we'll pass it through QA, and they're like, this is beautiful, it's a ton of fun. We'll put it to our community tester group, and it's great. So there's a wide margin for how long some of these skills take to make. Yeah.
And when are you going to be doing your content rollouts? Is that going to be with your cycles?
Yes. So cycles and Last Epoch, and I know a lot of people have a lot of questions about cycles and Last Epoch, so maybe I'll talk to that for just a second.
Sure.
So cycles and Last Epoch will be very similar to what you might see in Diablo with seasons or Path of Exile with leagues. So we'll be releasing cycles with a large amount of content additions, which will come out, every 3 to 4 months. And what that'll do is it'll introduce fresh leaderboards, fresh environment for characters to start on an even playing field. We will take existing characters and we'll put them into the legacy mode. So characters won't be wiped or anything like that. You'll still be able to access your characters, of course. But I guess another thing to touch on here is that we have so many things that we want to add to the base foundation of the game. And so with these cycles, we'll be adding a number of things to the in-game systems and skills and masteries and stuff like that. And we won't be getting to things like temporary cycle mechanics that we're just going to utilize and then throw away afterwards. It is very likely that we do temporary cycle mechanics in the future. I would even maybe even the more distant future, but there's so much that we want to add to the base game still that we'll continue to do that through the cycle releases and the patches. Yeah.
Okay, so if I'm understanding, at least for the first few cycles, if someone doesn't want to start a new character from scratch, whatever content rollouts will still be coming to, you said, whatever the non-cycle would be.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay, gotcha. And monetization-wise, what's the model that we're looking at here?
Yeah, so Last Epoch currently comes with a box price, around a double A title. It's $34.99. Of course, that's localized to different regions. But we also offer cosmetic items to players who want to further support the development of the game. Now, I want to note that we as a team will never sell any type of power, no convenience, no quality of life. With the box price, we want to make sure that all of that stuff is included within the base of the game for absolutely everybody, and we want to just jam pack it full of all of those types of things.
And that comes with a full campaign, of course.
It does, yes.
So that was how many acts, and roughly how long do you expect an average player to take to complete that?
Yeah, so it varies a lot. 9 chapters right now, and you can get through the campaign as a new player in something like 30 hours or something like that. But again, depending on the pacing of the player, if you're checking loot and stuff like that, it can be 60, or some of our communities members always surprise us and can get through the campaign very quickly, way faster than I can. So a little bit of variance there.
And is the campaign something you plan to expand upon with future either cycles or expansions or anything?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll be continuing to add more chapter content to the game. There's a lot of story that we intend to tell with Last Epoch, and we're not trying to rush a number of these story arcs. And so the story of Last Epoch will continue to evolve and be told for many patches into the future. Absolutely.
Now, you guys have the whole time travel element to the story. Yes. I feel like kind of gives you a lot of leeway in being able to continue the campaign in interesting ways by, go back in time and something else happens.
Absolutely. Time travel is going to enable us a lot of great things. It already does. But for the future development of the game, 1.0 is just kickoff, and the things that we're able to do with time travel are going to be really, really awesome. It lays a really great foundation for in-game because we get to go and tell the stories in different timelines and realities of what could have been, and that gives us this foundation to just expand upon forever. And so if we're developing the game for many, many years into the future, this does really good stuff for us.
And when we're looking at the cycles, do we replay the campaign every cycle, or do we have an option of skipping the campaign?
Yeah, good question. So we do think that the campaign is an important part of the experience of creating a new character. And so we intend for players to play the campaign. Now, there are things like dungeons in the game which can help you skip a swath of content, especially if it is your second character in a cycle, it's an alt, and you have these dungeon keys. So there are ways to speed up that progression, but yes, we do feel it is important to make sure that players get to experience the campaign when they go into a new cycle. And we'll be continuing to add cool stuff and random events and things like that, so it's not just the same exact thing every single time.
All right, so Last Epoch has a couple different ways to respec. Right,
Yes,
there's
yes.
your active skills, your passive tree. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah. So we try to make respecking in Last Epoch fairly easy. We have a lot of great stuff to experiment with in the skill and passive system. And so, especially with early levels, we want people to be able to spec into things and be able to not feel like they're locked into a decision that maybe they don't enjoy. We do make it a little bit more resource intensive when you're getting to like the really late stages of investing into a skill, but more than not, we try to make it easy so that players can experiment with the cool stuff that we have in the skill trees.
Right, so your active skills actually have no real cost. It's a time cost because you have
That's
to
correct.
re-level them to some degree, but
That's
it's
correct.
an expedited process, right? So
Yes. So as you get to higher levels and you're killing enemies that are higher levels, you're getting more experience. So gaining levels back into those skills, if you respect them later, is expedited from earlier portions in the campaign where you might get those initially.
and then on the passive tree, that's where the gold cost comes in, right?
Correct.
So what's the philosophy, I guess? For instance, why not just have free respec, or why not have no respec? What made you come to the decision, the balance point that you arrived at?
Yeah. It's there's definitely our philosophy in this is that we want players who are playing a class to feel like they have made choices and they feel like the class that they have spec'd into. So we don't want it to be this completely free respec where you can just be this malleable character. But we also want we want to respect players' time and make sure that they're able to go and not be locked into decisions that they want to backpedal in. There's only a couple things in the game that we really lock players into. One of them being like, if you choose a mastery, we ask that they stay that mastery because that's a big choice in that character's events.
So do you see this as a game where people will have like different build loadouts for different activities where like, okay, I'm going to respec to start tackling this content, and then later in the day I'll maybe change up these skills or the passive choices to better fit this content?
Yeah. I can certainly see scenarios in which people might want to do that. Things like the Endless Arena. There are certain areas of the game where that might be beneficial, but we hope that characters are finding builds that they feel good about experiencing multiple types of content with that same build without feeling like they need to change their specializations all the time.
All right, let's talk a bit about just itemization philosophy in general. What do you feel makes for a good itemization system in an action RPG?
Yeah. We could talk about that one for a long time, couldn't we? So, I mean, at the core, you want the loot in these types of games to be interesting. You want to be able to build a class with different offenses and defenses that feel unique mechanically. You don't want to just pick up an axe that, has 60 plus DPS that swings a little bit faster, because that makes the progression feel a little bit boring, monotonous. We also want to make sure that there are interesting middle ground drops. So as you're playing through, you shouldn't just find items that go into your main slots or your paper doll slots, so not just gloves and helmets and chests like that. So we have things like idols and interesting crafting materials that drop, so you're getting that sense of progression as you're playing through the game without finding those constantly. Yeah, we could go into that for a long time. Let's get another interview for that one alone.
Sure.
Though.
I mean, you mentioned idols, so
Yes.
that's basically
Yes.
Diablo 2 charms.
Yes.
But take away the awful friction from the system by they don't work in your inventory. You have a separate inventory for them. You have a specific layout that you designed for that. What was the thought, or how did you arrive at? Because in the middle, there's that little thing that blocks you from certain configurations, right?
Right. Yeah. So we experimented with different layouts for the idols. So for people who don't know, idols come in different sizes. And what we wanted to make sure happened is that people didn't find a 1x4 idol that they would just, that was the best one, and then nothing else mattered. And so they had a square where they could just do 4 1x4s. And so we have this in a layout where you can't do that, and you have to consider other idols of different shapes. And so it kind of creates this fun Tetrising game, and it makes sure that the idols that you're finding throughout your experience are things that you want to actually look into and you might actually use.
Awesome. Was there any other message that you wanted to get out there?
Just thank you to everybody who has helped us get to this point in the development of Last Epoch. We really appreciate it. Rhykker, it was a fantastic time getting to hang out with you here at Gamescom.
Likewise.
Thank you for coming. The team enjoyed it. The fans enjoyed it. Really appreciate that. And thank you, everyone.
Again, Last Epoch is currently available in early access, with a full release coming by the end of the year. If you've played before, September 7th is a great time to jump back in and try out the Rune Master. And I guess if you've not played before, it still is a great time to jump into the game. Like 90% of the game is there and playable, has been for a while. It's been amazing to see the journey this game has taken from its Kickstarter back in the day. And I do hope for a lot of success for this team. And that's going to wrap up this video. But be sure to check out my full Gamescom series of videos. There's going to be about 5 of them in total. I think as of right now, maybe 2 have already gone up. Gamescom opening night, and my Diablo interview. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, please share it, check out these other videos, and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders for more aRPG content.